Karen had grown bolder and more reckless with every failed scheme. Her latest stunt involved illegally building structures on my ranch, an escalation that crossed all boundaries. She clearly assumed that intimidation and force could bend reality to her will, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. It started with a report from a neighbor who had spotted construction equipment on my property. Bulldozers and trucks were moving earth near the old barn, and foundations were being laid in places I had always kept private. The audacity was staggering. Karen had ignored warnings, trespassed multiple times, and now attempted to assert ownership over land that was clearly mine. I immediately mobilized. Security cameras were set to monitor every angle of the property, and I contacted the local sheriff, providing real-time evidence of illegal activity. I also informed my attorney, ensuring that every step was documented and that law enforcement had legal authority to intervene if necessary. When I arrived on site, Karen was overseeing the workers, clipboard in hand, barking orders with her usual overconfidence. "Hurry up! We don't have all day!" she shouted, convinced that her authority could intimidate anyone present. I stepped onto the property, my presence calm but commanding. My dogs flanked me, alert and prepared, their growls low but unmistakable. Karen's face twitched, her confident smirk wavering as she realized I was there to confront her directly. "You are trespassing," I said, voice steady. "All construction on this property is illegal. You and your workers must leave immediately. Law enforcement has been notified, and any further activity will result in criminal charges." Karen laughed nervously, attempting to regain her composure. "I'm just improving the property. The HOA." I shook my head. "The HOA has no authority over private land you do not own. Leave now." But Karen didn't leave. Instead, she tried to escalate, ordering workers to continue, attempting to assert dominance through sheer force of will. That was when the showdown began. I moved strategically, positioning myself between the construction and my home. My dogs were in defensive positions, blocking paths and creating a controlled perimeter. Karen's workers faltered, realizing that the person in front of them was not bluffing. Within minutes, deputies arrived, responding to the documented trespassing. Karen attempted to argue, but the evidence was overwhelming. Photographs, drone footage, security cameras, and eyewitness accounts all confirmed illegal activity. The deputies instructed the workers to halt immediately and leave the property, and Karen was warned that any further attempts could result in arrest. Karen's expression transformed from arrogance to panic. She tried one final bluff, attempting to claim that the work was authorized by community agreement or some vague HOA mandate, but the deputies and legal documentation left no room for argument. By the time she retreated, her construction crew had packed up, and her bold attempts at theft and control were fully thwarted. My property remained untouched, the land fully mine, and Karen's authority completely nullified. The following day, I reviewed the security footage. Every step of her trespassing, every unlawful order, and her futile attempts at intimidation were captured in crystal-clear detail. The documentation would serve as concrete evidence in future legal actions and further solidify my protection against her. Neighbors who had watched the retreat began to speak out, sharing their observations of Karen's repeated violations. Her reputation, already shaky, was eroding rapidly. Even within the HOA, whispers circulated about her recklessness and illegal behavior. That evening, as I walked the perimeter of my ranch, the air filled with the scent of pine and freshly turned earth, I reflected on the day's events. Karen had attempted to seize control, to build illegally, and to intimidate with audacity, but she had underestimated preparation, law, and resolve. The ranch, my sanctuary, was secure. Karen's bluff had been called, and the truth had prevailed. Her attempts at dominance were exposed as reckless, illegal, and futile. The lesson was clear. No matter how aggressive or audacious the opponent, preparedness, evidence, and calm authority will always ensure victory. As the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the land, I knew that my property, my peace, and my family were safe. Karen had been forced to retreat once again, powerless and exposed. a reminder that arrogance without law and strategy is always defeated by patience, preparation, and unwavering authority.